Hi, my name is Brad Emery, and this is my data protocol for continuous improvement. So I'm just going to run through this real quickly with you. You can see the graphic here on the screen. We're looking at what should we be doing to guide and implement continuous improvement using the data that we have. So the first step is to define the goal. Are we looking at long-term continuous improvement as our end goal, or are we just trying to fill the gaps prior to these large assessments? So we need to consider where we're at and where we'd like to be before we start analyzing the data and make sure our priorities are set in the right place. Following that, we need to ask the right questions. So how do we get to the current state? Where do we want to go once we know how we've got here? And then how are we going to get there? So the process, the steps. A lot of times this is where people start, but we want to make sure we're asking the right questions and setting our goals so that we don't use this step, or rather misuse this step and go in the wrong direction. So the final question in these series of questions is, are we making a difference? So the current processes that we're doing and using, are they making a difference for all the students to close those gaps and to continually improve our school knowledge using the data we have on hand? So the third step is to implement, analyze, and reflect. A lot of schools nail the implementation. It's really on the analyzation and reflection after the fact that we kind of fall short. So we can't end with that implementation. We've got to continue to meet together as collaborative groups to discuss and determine whether or not our implementation is working. Are we making progress towards those goals we set in the first step? And then talk about and make any adjustments as needed. Our fourth step is to take some time and reevaluate periodically. We need to meet ideally multiple times a year, but certainly at least once a year to look at where we're at, look at our progress, look at our implementation, reanalyze that data, as well as integrate any new data that we have with our teams to make sure what we're doing is working. And if it's not, what are we going to do to fix it? If it is working, what can we do to make it even better? Because again, that's continuous improvement. We're never good enough. There's always chance and room to grow. And then step 5, we have to understand the process. You've got to have the right mindset going into all this, and you have to be aware that change isn't something that's going to happen overnight. The move towards this continuous improvement is a long-lasting move, and it's got many highs and lows. We want to take and celebrate those successes and those highs and learn from our lows and our mistakes and always grow and do better. I've also taken the time to make a input sheet here for teachers. It's very similar based off that graphic that you just saw. You can see that we've got a space for teachers or collaborative groups to define the goal, asking the right questions, implementing, analyzing, and reflecting, reevaluating, and planning out that reevaluation process. And then just again, that reminder of the correct mindset. So as far as what this looks like for teachers, well, we're going to use some essential questions along with that data protocol that we just talked through to make sure teachers and teams have a starting place and a way to discuss what they need to discuss. So a few of the questions we'd like our teams to ask is, where are we now? Where do we want to be? How did we get to where we are now? And then how are we going to get to where we want to be? So again, this is all based around those goals that we set earlier in the process. And then finally, is what we're doing, is what we're going to do, going to make a difference, or is it currently making a difference? So these 5 questions are pulled from Dr. Bernhardt's article, where she discusses the best strategies for using data to implement and lead to lasting change and continuous improvement. And as I've noted here in the summary, that's something that our school would begin using. And then as we've got our feet in the water, so to speak, for a little while, we can modify this a little bit and make sure that we're catching what we need to catch. You can see a few discussion questions here as well to kind of guide and direct these first few meetings that we would have with our teachers. Things like, what data are we currently using? How is this data being analyzed and used to inform decisions? Are we making changes that improve the outcomes of all students based on this data? I think the big thing is that all students piece, not just filling in gaps. Few other questions. What are we doing? Can we continue doing? or stop doing that will affect the outcomes of students on all levels? Is there any other data we need to be collecting or analyzing? Are we collecting any unnecessary data? And if the answer to that's yes, I hope that we can take the time and get rid of it. What strategies or changes have we made that are leading to success? And how can we continue to grow on, build on, and improve this success? And then what strategies or changes have we made that are not leading to success, that aren't as valuable? Do we need to cut those? Do we need to modify those? What are we going to do to address these, and what will we do instead or in addition to? So as far as teachers' reactions to this, I think you're going to have a range from teachers who love the idea of having a data protocol, such as we've laid out here, and you're going to have others that definitely hate that idea of one more thing to do, as they would see it. And my goal would be in using this with teachers to show them the value of it. And even though it's step 5, I think that mindset shift is really the important thing of the goal here is not one more thing to do, not one more thing to your plates, but rather this is a process, a framework in which we're going to start using that data that we have for the good of all the students. And we want to set expectations that in the same way we expect our students to improve and to grow, we want to do the same as educators. So thank you for taking time to watch my presentation, and I hope for you the end.